Good day everyone, my name is Senator Idris Erinlakatabu. Today we are looking at a topic called flower. You see, when we're talking about the flower, what will first come into your mind when you hear the word flower is that of the flower we are using to decorate our houses, our offices. No. In biology, when we are to look into flower, generally we are looking at a flower under the topic called reproductive system in plants. And when we're talking about the reproductive system in plants, particularly the sexual reproduction, that is when the flower will surface. Now, to now look at the definition of a flower, we can simply say flower is a reproductive organ in angiosperm. Let's give a definition. We say flower is a reproductive organ in angiosperm. In angiosperm. When we say flowers is a reproductive organ in angiosperm, meaning that it is the one that ensures the reproductive, particularly the sexual reproduction in plants generally. You see, plants capable of reproducing with the mode of sexual and asexual, meaning that the plants can exhibit both sexual and asexual means of reproduction. But the one that has to do with the sexual of it is involved by what? Is fully involved by the flower. That's why we refer to flower as a reproductive organ in angiosperm. And we all know what we call angiosperm. Angiosperm simply means flowering plant. We can say flower is a part of a shoot. It's a part of a shoot that carry out sexual reproduction. In plants. That is the flower for you. It is the flower that ensures the sexual reproduction in what? In a plant. That shows that for it to be able to exhibit the sexual reproduction, it means it has both male and female reproductive organs. Because in anything that has to do with sexual reproduction, meaning that the two gametes are fully involved. Now, when the gametes are involved, the organ that ensures the production of these gametes is the flower, meaning that the flower is capable of producing the sperm as well as producing the what? Producing the ovum, so as to carry out the sexual means of reproduction. A flower is said to be staminate. Is said to be staminate. Let's underline the word staminate. When it possesses male organs. That is why we call the flower a staminate flower. Once we know that once we say it is a flower that ensures the sexual reproduction of a plant, that means that it has what we call the male and the female reproductive organ. We cannot see a particular flower called a staminate flower. That means such a staminate flower possesses what? The male organs. Let's say it possesses male organs. Now, on the other hand, we can still say a flower is also said to be pistillate. To be what? To be pistillate when it possesses female organs, that is female reproductive organs. So when we say a flower is pistillate, that is a female flower. And when we say a flower is staminate, that is a male flower. We can now see a condition where a single flower will bear both staminates, will bear both male and female reproductive organs. If a particular flower bears both male and female reproductive organs, such a particular flower is called bisexual, or we call it hermaphrodite. We call it hermaphrodite flower. So when we say bisexual or hermaphrodite flower, we can say it's a flower possessing both male and female reproductive organs. That is what it means. Meaning that when a flower is having both male and female reproductive organs, it means a particular flower has a part that we can refer to as staminate. That's the male flower. It also has a particular part in it called pistillate. That is the female flower. And that is just that. Now we can see, so when we say a flower is a unisexual flower as well, that means such a flower will be either staminate or pistillate. We cannot have a plant. When we not have a plant having a flower of either of the two, This is what I'm saying. When a plant, we can say a plant possessing unisexual flower. You know, when we say unisexual flower, the unisexual flower will either staminate or pistillate. Let's indicate either pistillate or staminate. Either pistillate or staminate. If a particular plant is bearing unisexual flower of either pistillate or staminate, such a particular plant is called, we can say such a plant is called monoecious plants. That is a kind of a plant that is fine in what? That is, we have a maize as typical example. Maize is typical example of such a plant. Meaning that a plant, in the maize we have either what? Either pistillate flower or staminate flower. Now on the other hand now, when the plant is not having bisexual flower or having an hermaphrodite flower, that means that in such a particular plant is having a flower that possesses both male and female reproductive organs. What do we call such a plant? Let's now consider that as well. A plant possessing both male, or let's say a plant possessing bisexual flower is termed or is called dioecious plants. Dioecious plants. So when we're talking about the dioecious plant, that means such a particular flower is having both male and female reproductive organ on a single plant. So typical example of that is where we have our Carica papaya, that is a pawpaw. That is pawpaw as typical example. We all know that flower usually attached to the parent plant with a kind of a structure called a pedicel. It is this pedicel that serves as intermediary structure between the flower and the parent plant. Now, when the flower now attaches to the parent plant without any intermediary structure called pedicel, such a particular plant or such a particular flower is called sessile flower. We call it sessile flower. You know, when we're talking about the flower, these are sessile flower. This is a kind of flower that do not have pedicel. And typical example of such is sunflower. We can have sunflower. We can also have aspelia as another example of a sessile flower. In short, let's now move to the flower whorls. The flower whorl simply means the parts of the flower. There are four major parts of the flower, and that is one that constitutes the flower whorls. Let's look at it one after the other. Flower whorls. Basically, there are four floral whorls we have. And what are these floral whorls? That is the four floral parts of the flower. And what are these? Number one, we look at andresium. We say andresium. That is number one. Number two, we look at gymnasium, or we refer to it as pistil. You can still call it pistil. Number three, we have corolla. Number four, we have calyx. These are four major floral whorls that we have. Though the other part of the flower that we can still reckon with are the receptacle and the pedicel. But let's look at these four major floral whorls we have. So the four major floral whorls we have are andresium, gymnasium, corolla, and the calyx. Let's now take them one after the other. On the issue of andresium, when we say andresium, we can simply refer to andresium as a collective term for the, or let's say it's a reproductive system for male reproductive parts of the flower. The reproductive system that comprises of the all male reproductive parts of a flower. That is what we call andresium. We can say andresium is a collective term for all male reproductive organs in flower. So it means it comprises of two or more stamens. It comprises of two or more stamens. If you don't forget, we all know that stamens has to do with the male reproductive part of the flower. That is why a flower that bears the male part is called a staminate. So that shows that such a particular flower possesses the stamen. Now, as we said, it's a collective term for all male reproductive parts of the flower. We can still refer to it as a male reproductive system of the flower. Now we now say it's comprised of 2 or more stamens. Let's now look at each stamen now. We can say a stamen, a single stamen, is made of what are the components of the stamen? So let's take each one after the other. Number 1, the component of the stamen, we have the anther. The first one we have anther, and the second one we have filament. These are 2 things that constitute a stamen. We have the anther, we have the filament. Let's also take the anther and the filament one after the other. Now, to look at the anther, we can simply refer to anther as a bilobed structure. Anther is a bilobed structure. It's a bilobed structure that sits on the what? On a filament. On a filament. We can still say each lobe of anther. Let's say each lobe of anther has what? Has 2 pollen sacs. Each lobe of anther has 2 pollen sacs, in which we have the pollen grains. So let's quickly look at the structure of what I'm trying to explain now. Let's say this is our anther. Now this is our anther. The anther is of 2 lobes, and each lobe has a pollen sac. So these are the pollen sac. Each pollen sac contains the pollen grain, and it is the pollen grain that bears the male sperm. It's one that bears the sperm of what? Of a flower. Are we getting this now? So we can simply refer to this one as our anther. This is the anther. This is the pollen sac. We call this one pollen sacs containing pollen grains. So that is the what? That is the anther for you. Or to the, at times, if it doesn't attach to the receptacle of a flower, it can still attach to the petals. As in alamander flower. When we see the alamander flower as in alamander. So that is the filament for you. It is one that look at just like a thread on which the anther sits, and at the same time it can attach or descend from the receptacle or descend from the petals of the flower. So for instance, now when it descends from the receptacle, we can simply find that in Pyranobarbados flower. Or when it descends from our petals, we can simply find that in Alamander flower. Now that is all about the andresium. That is all about the andresium. We can now have the structure of a single stamen for further explanation. You see, we can say this is our anther like this. We can have this as our anther, and we can have this as our filament. I said the anther is of bilobe, so here we have the pollen sac. These are the pollen sac. So we have this one as our filament. So let's indicate this as anther. This is our anther containing the pollen sac. This is the pollen sac within. So we all know the pollen sac also contains the pollen grains. Then we have the filament. So all these constitute a stamen. So this is a stamen. And when we have 2 or more stamens, that's when we have andresium that serves as a male reproductive system in the flower. Now that is all about that. Let's now go to another one, which is gymnasium. Let's go to gymnasium. Number 2 now. We have gynoecium, or we just refer to it as pistil. As it happens in andresium, the same thing applicable to gymnasium. Andresium is what? It's also a collective term. It's a collective term for all female reproductive parts or organs of a flower. So that is the andresium for you. We can now say andresium, that's the gymnasium. So that's gymnasium for you. You can simply say gymnasium, let's say it comprises of 2 or more carpels. It has 2 or more carpels. That is that when we have 2 or more carpels, as we have 2 or more stamens, that constitutes that of androsion. We also have 2 or more carpels that form a single gynoecium that we refer to as a female reproductive part or organs or system of a flower. Now to look at a carpel now, we can say a carpel is made up of her stigma. So that is number 1. We have the stigma as number 1 of it, of components of the carpel. We have the stigma. Number 2, we have style. 3, we have ovary. So these 3 constitute a carpel. We can simply have a diagram for this before taking them one after the other. For this stigma now, stigma is this, something of swollen structure like this. Then we have our style like this. Then we can simply have our ovary. So here we can have this as our stigma. This is the stigma. This is the style of the flower. Then we have this as ovary. 3 of these constitute a carpel. They constitute a carpel. Now, let's also take them one after the other based on the function. Now, to look at this now, stigma. When I'm talking about the stigma, you see, it is this stigma that serves as receptive surface for the pollen grain during pollination. As we all know that when we are talking about the sexual reproduction in living organisms generally, there should be a means of deposition of the male gametes to get into that of the female gamete. And it is this stigma, it is the one that serves as a receptive surface for the pollen grain during pollination. Now we have the style. We can simply look at the style as a structure that connects the stigma to the what? To the ovary. And not only that as its function, it's also the one that creates a channel through which the pollen tube runs from the pollen grain to the what? To the ovule after the pollination has taken place. So let's say for fertilization to take place, that's all about that. The third one of it is that of an ovary. We all know that ovary is the swollen end of the entire carpel. It's the one that bears the structure called ovules. Now, meaning that inside the ovary, we have the ovules. There are ovules there. So we have the ovules that are arranged in certain pattern. And arrangement of the ovules is what we call placentation. That's what we refer to as a what? As a placentation, and as a case we are coming back to discuss later. Now, this is a structure called a carpel. And when we have 2 or more carpels, we are going to have gynoecium or pistil as a female reproductive part of the flower. Now, let's proceed to number 3 of it now. Number 3, we are having corolla. We have corolla. You see, when I'm talking about the corolla is also a collective term for the petals. When we have 2 or more petals, we have corolla. Are we getting it now? And when we're talking about the petals are the prominent or conspicuous part of the flower, and they are usually a centered part. It is centered in the sense that it's one that provides a means of, it's one that attracts the insects, particularly in insect pollinating flower. So when we look at the flower, when we say this flower is very fine, it's very beautiful, it's very attractive, the attractive part of the flower is being produced by the petals. That is why we say we like a particular flower. When we fall in love with a particular flower, it means we fall in love with the what? With the petals of that flower, because it's that particular part that will attract the animals, that will attract the insects, particularly for what? For pollination. So that is the petals. Now, there are different patterns of arrangement of what? Of petals on a particular flower. When the petals are free, at times the petals will be free. That is, we have a petals like this that stand on its own. We have the petals like this that stand on its own. We have the petals like this. We have the petals like this. So when petals are free on a single receptacle, such particular petals are called polypetalous. Polypetalous. And where can we simply find this polypetalous? Polypetalous flower is found in a rose flower. It can simply found in rose flower. Now we can also have a situation where the petals are being fused together to even form, at times they form in 2. So such particular petals are called gamopetalous. Gamopetalous. So that is gamopetalous flower. So a typical example of that is found in primrose. It can be found in primrose flower. So where the petals just form something of 2, or they form funnel in some cases. So that is all about the petal. Now, number 4 of it, the 4th one is the calyx. We have the calyx. As it occurs in the corolla, the same thing applicable to the calyx. When we're talking about the calyx are the aggregation, it is a collective term for the sepals. They are the sepals. And when we're talking about the sepals are the modified leaves. At times they ensure the photosynthetic process in flower, as they are usually green in color, and they contain the chlorophyll through which the food can be manufactured, particularly in just developing a flower. So that is all about that. Now, the sepals can also be free and can also be fused. When they are fused like this, it is called gamosepalous. Gamosepalous. And when we're talking about the gamosepalous, that can be found in hibiscus flower. You can see it in hibiscus flower. And at the same time, when the sepals are free, this is when they are fused, fully fused or partially fused. Here, when they are free, so when the sepals are free, they are called polysepalous. They are called polysepalous. And typical example of this is found in alamanda flower. So that is all about that. Now, that is all about the 4 floral whorls of a plant, of a flower rather. We still have certain parts that are mostly referred to as non-essential parts of the flower. And these are the pedicels and the receptacle. Let's also look at the pedicel and receptacle of a flower. The pedicel and the receptacle of a flower now. You see when we're talking about the pedicel, let's start with the receptacle now. Receptacle. We call it receptacle, or at times in flower we call it thalamus. You can call it thalamus. When we're talking about this receptacle or thalamus, it is a swollen end of an entire flower on which all other floral parts are born. So that is what we call a receptacle. And in some cases, or let's say in some fruits, we can see a condition where the receptacle will just develop to the edible part of a fruit as a multiple fruit or first fruit. So that is why we do refer to this receptacle as accessory parts of a flower. We refer to it as accessory parts of a flower. And the last one is that of the pedicel. We have the pedicel. Pedicel is what we refer to as flower stalk. We call it flower stalk. It is this part that attaches the the flower to the parent plant. So that's why I said earlier that some flower just attach to the parent plant without the flower stalk, and such flower are called sessile flower. So we do refer to this as the main part that attach the flower, the entire flower, to the parent plant. So that's all about the floral whorl. Now we are going to look at the fertilization in flower. We look at fertilization in flower. You know, when we say flower, it is the one that ensures the sexual reproduction in plants, in angiosperm, but let's say in plant generally, particularly in angiosperm. When we say angiosperm, let's now look at the parts that ensure the production of the male gametes and that of production of the female gamete before we dabble into fertilization. Because we all know fertilization it involves the fusion of the male and female gamete. Now look at the structure. So to look at this now, what is the structure that ensures the production of a sperm in flower? That means we get to know that under the male reproductive part of a flower, and that is the stamen. So what's that structure? It means we are going to look at the pollen grain. It is the pollen grain that ensures the production of a sperm in the what? In the flower. So let's now look at how pollen grain even looks like before talking about the gamete. So to look at the structure of the pollen grain now, let's just go straight to the structure of the pollen grain. We can simply have this as the structure of a pollen grain. Now, we can say pollen grain has a structure that is of this. It has the outer part called exine, and it has an inner part called intine. So contained in the inner part is where we have the two male gametes it possesses. And what are these? We have a germ nucleus and vegetative nucleus. You can call this one germ sperm nucleus and a vegetative or tube nucleus. You can call it tube or vegetative nucleus. So these are two things that are present in the what? In a pollen grain. So this is the structure of a pollen grain, and it has an outer part that has what we call the pit, so through which the absorption of water is able to take place. So all this part we are seeing here is the exine. The inner part is intine. We have the germ sperm nucleus, and we also have the tube or vegetative nucleus. Now it is this one that produces the the male part, that is the sperm. Let's also look at the one that ensures the production of a female gamete, and that is the ovule. We look at the ovule now. So let's also look at that structure. To look at the structure of ovule, we say ovule. So for better understanding of ovule, we all know that ovule is also contained in the ovary, and we can't just draw our ovary without indicating the stigma and the what and the style. So that is where we can now have our ovules contained in the what? Contained in the ovary. And I said there is certain pattern of arrangement of the ovules in the ovary, and that's what we call the placentation. So what that means for us to even indicate the ovule, we still have to indicate a part called her placenta. Now, let's look at the structure of it now. We start with having a structure of stigma. We have a stigma, then we have our style. After that, let's just rub this. After that, we can have our, let's have it like this. Now, this is what? This is our carpet now. So we call this one our stigma. This is our stigma. This is our style. And we have this one as our ovary wall, or just say ovary anyhow. Now, this is ovary wall. We now said to have to indicate the ovary. Ovary is just not seated. It's not just seated in the what? In the ovary. There is something that attaches the ovary to the, that attaches the ovary to the ovary, and that is what we call a placenta. So we just have to indicate the placenta like this. Let's assume we have our placenta like this. So all the structure we are seeing is placenta. And there's something that also serves as intermediary structure between the placenta and the ovule itself. And that is what we call our follicle. So we can simply identify this one as what? As our follicle. While this one is our placenta. That is placenta. Now, let's now have the ovule wall. For the ovule wall now, the ovule is sometimes two layers. It is by layer. And these two layers are called the outer and inner integument. So we can have this one as, this one will be inner, this one will be outer, two of them will be what? Will be integument. That is integument. So we have the inner integument, we have the outer integument. And this integument has just a pinhole site that allows for the passage of the garment. And this is what we call a micropyle. We call it a micropyle. Now, after having this now, are the two integuments now within this integument, there is a membrane called embryo sac. We call it embryo sac. Before even having the whole structure is still what we call ovule anyway. So this is what we call embryo sac. Let's indicate embryo sac. It is this one that what? That bears what we call the nucellus. The empty space here is what we call the nucellus. We call it nucellus. And within the nucellus is where we have the female gametes. So here we can have the gas cell found very close to this entrance. We call it gas cell. This is our gas cell. After having our gas cell, we can have our definite nucleus and the ovum here. So we can have, say we have our definite nucleus, and we have the ovum. That is the main gamete there. Now on top of this, we have three antipodal cells. This is the three antipodal cell. So to look at the structure of ovule now, we must indicate this. So the entire of this is what we call the ovule, and this is what we call the placenta. So arrangement of the ovules on placenta is what we call placentation. That's where we have different types. As marginal, we have the axile, we have the parietal, we have the basal, and many more. Now that is the structure of the what? That's the structure of an ovule. Now to now look at the fertilization, how fertilization takes place. If we are to discuss the fertilization usually takes place in what? In the female part of what? Of a flower. Let's say of living things generally. Now to look at this now, let's now look at the fertilization now. How fertilization occurs here. Before fertilization will occur in flower, there is something that must come up first. And what is that? That is a process called pollination. And what do we call pollination? We all know that pollination is the transfer of a pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of a flower. That shows that the pollen grain will fall on this stigma. That is when the pollination has taken place. And we shouldn't forget that the pollen grain has its own structure too, in which we have the germ nucleus and the vegetative or tube nucleus. Let's now consider that the fertilization wants to take place now. The first thing that will occur before the fertilization is what we call the pollination. That means the pollination is different from fertilization, because sometimes when we are making a difference between, or we are making the differences between plants and animal, we do say pollination occurs in plants, while fertilization in animal is wrong. Fertilization occurs in both plants and animal once they exhibit sexual reproduction. That's the only way we can have a fertilization. And for fertilization to take place, something will come up first. In animal, we can say it is the intercourse that will come up, or coitus as an animal, as in higher animal rather. But in plant, the first thing that will come up is pollination. After the pollination has taken place, then we now go to the process called fertilization. That shows that fertilization occurs in both plants and animals once they exhibit sexual means of reproduction. Now, what are we saying now? We say before the fertilization will take place now, the pollen grain has to fall on the stigma. When the pollen grain fall on the stigma, let's assume this is our pollen grain on the stigma, and the process is what we call pollination. The first thing that will happen is that it is this stigma that was, as I said, it serves as a receptive surface of a pollen grain. As it just accepts the pollen grain, the first thing it's going to do is that it secretes a digestive enzyme, which will be absorbed by the pollen grain. So when the pollen grain now absorbs these digestive enzyme, eventually it swells up. When it swells up, it later bursts. As it bursts, it releases the two gametes. So as the two gametes is just coming down, so you can just pick this one out now. As the gamete is coming down, they begin to form the pollen tube. And what's responsible for the production of this pollen tube is what we call the tube of vegetative nucleus. If we don't forget, I said here we have the two gametes in the what? In the pollen grain. We have the germ nucleus and we have the sperm nucleus. As the pollen grain now fall on the stigma, I said it swell up. When it swell up, it eventually bursts. As the thing is just coming down, as it bursts, the thing that will be forming is what we call the pollen tube. What now ensures the production or formation of this pollen tube is that of the first gamete called the tube nucleus or vegetative nucleus. Now, this thing now is what we call germinating pollen grain. If you should draw this one out, this, as I just indicated out like this, we call it germinating what, and it still has one gamete. Out of the two gametes we have here, one of it has formed what? One of them has formed the pollen tube, and that is the tube nucleus. So we can simply refer to this one as pollen tube now, as pollen tube. So the pollen tube now it will move towards what? It moves towards the micropyle. This is the micropyle. This is the pollen tube coming down. So the pollen tube is not just going like that. There is there's a purpose for that. And what is that purpose? Let's look at that now. Now, out of the two gametes contained in the pollen grain, so one has eventually formed what? The pollen tube. And what is that? That is a tube nucleus. That's why we call this one germinating pollen sac. Now, the second one will now undergo what we call mitosis. When it undergoes mitosis, and mitosis has to do with cell division, where we are going to have two genetically identical daughter cells. Now we are going to have two male gametes here. So as this one is being divided into two, they now move in the pollen tube. They move towards the micropyle, and they just stop here before they are able to enter the first reach here. And these two things, you can indicate them here. You can also label them here. So we refer to this one as two male gametes. We call them two male gametes. And they are formed by the sperm or germ nucleus. Now, when the tip of this pollen tube touches the micropyle also secretes a digestive enzyme which will be absorbed by the tip of this pollen tube. And when the pollen tube absorbs this, the pollen tube will also break and allow the two male gametes to enter into the nucellus with the head of the guard cells. Now, as the two male gametes enter into the nucellus, what do they meet? They meet two female gametes there as well. And number one of it is they will see the definite nucleus. The first one is definite nucleus. And what happens is that first male gamete fertilizes what? Definite nucleus. It fertilizes definite nucleus. To form what? And what will now form as a result? So to produce endospermic cell will be produced as a result of the first fertilization. Now, of course, between the first male gamete and the definite nucleus. Now, let's now look at number 2 now, which is the second male gamete. We also said second male gamete now. Second male gamete fertilizes ovum as number 2 of this. Fertilizes ovum to produce zygotes. The zygote will form. So it is this zygote that will now later develop to the seed. Okay, why the endospermic cell also later developed to the endospam, particularly for the plants that have for the flower that has the endosperm, where they normally store food. So that's just that. Now it's this one that will not develop to the what? That will not develop to the seed. So that is a simple double fertilization in flower. That's simple fertilization in flower. What are those things that will now, after the fertilization has taken place, there are some changes that will just come up as a result of fertilization. As it occurs in animal, the same thing applicable to the plant. We just have this one that we just cut off. This one will be removed. The carpel, the style, the ovary, the stigma will just be removed. That is the first thing that will leave a trait called scar on the what? On fruit. That is why we say most of the fruits usually have two scars. One from the point of the generation of the style, while the second one from the point of the generation of a receptacle. So that is number one thing that will happen. Now number two of it is that we just have, we said we have the two integument. We have the inner integument and the outer integument. The outer integument will form the testa of a fruit, while the inner integument can form a seed coat. Now that's all about that one as well. We also have the polytube will be degenerated, will be disappear. The gas cell, the antipolar cell will also be disappear as they all come together to form a single seed. Now the entire ovary will now develop to a fruit. The ovary develops to the fruit, while the ovule develops to the seed. So that is a simple fertilization in what? In flower. That is the end of the class for now. If you have a question, you can put your question in the comment section. And before I go, I still remain my name, Senator Idris Erinlakatabu. And don't forget to subscribe to Mr. Pure Biology. Like, share, and comment. Thanks.